30. I call this meeting to order.
No, you won't.
It is February 9th. It's February 3rd.
February 9th. The Eagles have won the Super
Yeah,
Bowl.
February, this says February.
Pull
Okay,
this
that
up in
was,
here so I cannot.
it is February 3rd,
So I'm good.
2025.
Get to that if you'll
And this is the Center County or Center
cannot in here.
Patton Township. For anybody at home, I was reading the Center County, Center Region Planning Activity Note. This is the Patton Township Planning Commission. And before we begin, do we have a motion for the approval of minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, the passes. Now, public comments. Do we have any comments from the public or from anybody in the room or even staff for that matter for anything that is not currently on tonight's agenda? Going once, going twice. And now we're going to get into it with Space Mart at Valley Vista, preliminary final land development plan 18-022-010-0000 and waiver request to section 350-49 off-street parking regulations. Who from staff is going to take it away?
Jenna.
Summer, all right.
Sorry, Summer.
It's fine. Okay. On January 24th, Penn Terra Engineering, on behalf of their client, submitted the preliminary final land development plan for Space Mart at Valley Vista. The proposed project is located on 5.281 acres. The lot is zoned C2 planned commercial and is in the I-99 interchange overlay. The applicant is proposing a 3-story, 809-unit self-storage facility. On December 13th, a waiver request was submitted, like Bill had said, for section 350-49 off-street parking. And since there's some new members here, we're going to go over maybe what a waiver request is. There we go. Okay, so what is a waiver? So anything that can be found in the subdivision land development ordinance has the potential to be waived. So things like sidewalks, curbing, parking, lighting, etc., things like that. Today we're going to be talking about bicycle parking. The process for requesting a waiver, so Patton Township will receive a formal request that will be submitted. The request must explain why compliance with the ordinance is impractical and how the waiver would still meet the intent of the regulations and not nullify them. Township staff would review this request before making a recommendation to the elected officials. So on the screen is a picture of the area. Highlighted in yellow is where the Space Mart self-storage facility will be. And then here's just another photo. If you guys frequent Home Depot, you know where the lot is. And then for the waiver, so the proposed development requires 22 bicycle parking spaces to be included on site, and the applicant is requesting that 4 short-term and 2 long-term bicycle parking spaces be provided on the site. Given the use of the site as a self-storage unit, I don't think a lot of people will be riding their bikes with their belongings that are going to be stored in the unit. So staff has reviewed both the plan and the waiver and have found no concerns.
Okay. Before we move forward, does anybody from the Planning Commission have any questions about the waiver process? Does anybody have questions about what is it that we are being asked to look at and possibly waive? Okay.
I have 2 questions about the January 30th document, but not about the waiver process. So maybe just edification for me.
Let's go ahead and, yeah, I will go ahead and let you ask those questions now.
Okay. I just noticed it was curious verbiage. It said if and when it is supplied. And then 2 sentences later, you say, the engineer shall either provide, et cetera. Is there a timing issue to that? Or is it just understood they couldn't go forward unless that information is provided?
So typically, when a plan is conditionally approved, there are outstanding conditions that must be met prior to that plan being recorded at the county, moving forward.
So it's a prior
with-
to understood?
Yes.
All right.
So these are the list of those conditions.
Okay. And then the other little question, the second section, when I go to sheet 4, there are TBDs, which I assume to be determined. Are those 29 or 30 and 31 for sheet 4? Are they what's referenced in item 2? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
All right. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to Pantera, since they are the requesting the waiver.
Evening, Tony Frockwell, Pantera Engineering, I'm the civil engineer for the project. Bob Pools with me here tonight, he's one of the owners, Valley Vista Development Company. So yeah, Valley Vista owns all of the areas seen up there. You can see the one lot where Home Depot sits. The second, I call it the pie-shaped lot, Kish Bank sits out front. Our proposed development's back in the corner there. We're following up here with a request for approval of the land development plan with the waiver. So it's a 45,000 square foot self-storage facility. It's 3 stories. It's kind of your typical self-storage facility. It's got garage doors around the perimeter. And quite frankly, as someone mentioned, nobody rides their bike to a self-storage facility. We are proposing 6 spaces for 4 outdoor, 2 indoor for staff. There's an office on site, so there will be opportunity for those folks there. I mean, if somebody does need to go and, I guess, check on their stuff, they can. But it seems excessive to require 22 bicycle parking stalls for the facility. So just asking for a waiver of that to the 4 outside and then.
And how many people would,
I was going to say, are there any questions? Proceed.
how many people do you anticipate being employed there?
I think there's only one or two people that are on site at any time, so.
And as to the employment question, how many times do you foresee people that are moving stuff in having friends coming to help?
I can't answer that question. I guess if you're asking for percentage half the time, I don't know the answer.
Because I foresee a possibility that, you could have people from across, thank you. It's been a long day, I apologize. From Atherton and riding their bike over, especially if we have, especially if it's easy. So, I mean, there are potentials for, as you pointed out, there's unknowns as to how many people would actually want to ride their bike to help other people that are moving in or help unload box trucks. So I'm hesitant on, I'm hesitant. So any other discussion from the planning commission?
My only comment on the bicycle spaces is people coming to help out. More than likely, they're going to ride in the same vehicle that the person's hauling gear in.
I agree.
Not necessarily, that car could be
Not
completely.
necessarily, but
Yeah.
more than likely.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Is there going to be someone living on site, like at the current Space Mart?
Okay. There's an office there.
Okay.
So in my mind, they're providing 6 total spaces, 2 indoors probably for employees and 4 outdoors. So that should be more than enough.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay.
So a storage place that I go to, if I go during the day, there's hardly anybody else there. You know, I've been there numerous times and it's like I'm the only one going in and out.
Okay.
So it's not going to be like the only rush I would see possibly is move in and move out for Penn State.
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone would be parking their bikes there for any long period of time.
I think I'd be afraid to ride my bike on North Avenue in Bella Vista.
Well, that's why we need, get some more bike paths. Wouldn't you say that's right, Mr. Poole? All right. Given that I seem to so clearly be overruled on this issue and discussion seems to no longer be warranted, let's go ahead and do I have a motion to approve the waiver first?
I approve it.
Okay.
Second.
All right. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Just to have it on record, I'm going to say nay, so that people know that I actually was serious. Okay. But Bob, it looks like it's going to be a really good plan. All right, now, do we have any questions on approving the entirety of the plan in general now that we've dealt with the waiver?
I had a question about the wells, or are they water wells, or are they oil wells, or?
Well, they're not oil wells.
Okay.
I think they were monitoring wells at some point.
So, yeah, Pennsylvania Groundwater used to submit temporary use permits where they would, on one day, they would invite individuals across Pennsylvania to come and do kind of like a drill site expo type thing where they would show how to drill the well, cap the well, seal the well type thing. They had them over there for quite a few years. They stopped, I don't know how many years ago, so the main concern with the township is where is the location of those well sites? What were they sealed off with? Is it going to impact the stormwater or any other part of the site? And I know that Tony has been working with Pennsylvania Groundwater, trying to get the information. It's just a matter if and when you can get it.
It was old. So
Yeah.
we're working on getting that information so the staff's satisfied to present you as well.
So we have definitely, what sounds like to me is we have a pending staff review on that item for any approval you guys want?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So any approval that we do, or any approval that we do, we need to make sure that staff has the final say on that. And I'm sure Mr. Poole doesn't want to build a foundation pillar right on a well. That would be a bad day. Yeah, exactly. All righty. Any other questions before I get into my question? My question only had to do with clearing up the stormwater basin. Was that finalized since then, or?
The easements?
Yeah,
I believe Michelle said it was 98% done this morning.
Okay.
We recognize it's an agreement with himself. If the ownership were to ever change, at least access and all of that is addressed. So,
okay,
outstanding administrative comment.
okay. All righty. Does anybody have any questions?
I hate to say this, but I didn't really, would it be too much trouble to actually kind of go through the design that you submitted? The trees and that's mainly what I was interested in, is what it's aesthetically going to look like. And you do have a picture of it, or more or less a drawing of it, but Jen's going to get it. What was that?
Gosh, last time I tried
So generally, plan.
Oh,
I know.
yep.
So you go through a line and then I think
Yeah, I looked at it. I just didn't understand some of the things.
so small. I don't know if the design is like blazing and all
Seventeen, the
that.
outside views.
I have a different 45.
Now, Bob, are you sure you only want a 3-story?
There we go.
What's that?
Are you sure you only want a 3-story?
Thanks.
So, while Jen is looking for that, one thing that I will say, just talking about where this is going, it does fall within the corridor overlay district. There are some requirements of the building in the corridor overlay district. They have to do with the materials of the building, the color of the building. It's not allowed to be a solid block wall. The building proposed that will have glass and glazing, it will have some metal, it will have some stone. It's not stone, it's more like a colored block, it will have some ethos. So the multiple colors, multiple materials will not look like warehouse. And I think that's the intent of the corridor overlay district. So we did submit an elevation plan, staff has reviewed that, and they concur that it meets those recommendations. And it will have 3 stories, obviously, two elevators on various corridors, different places around the building where they can access. But there will also be, like most self-storage facilities, overhead doors around the perimeter, so there will be large bays in there. Double bays, usually a little bit smaller, people will be taking stuff in and out.
Now, as far as the elevators, have you guys made any determination on what types you're going to be using?
I can't, I don't know the answer to that. That's part of that.
Okay, are you guys going to have it be an elevator room on the top, or the self-contained ones that they've got nowadays?
I don't know the answer to that.
When all the people who are loading and unloading and all that kind of, would all flow the same way?
Yes, it'll be one-way direction around the building. It is gated, you need access code to get in. Obviously, you won't get out. There's a door that you can, I call it man door gate, with the crash bar that you can get out, so you can't get stuck in there.
Right.
The car might get stuck in there, but you can get out.
Actually, it's going to get
Big shape for it.
with anybody there.
Okay.
Actually, it's going to, if you, one person's enough, I think, to where self-storage will be suitable.
Okay. Yeah, I was interested in how it was going to aesthetically appear with the trees around it and all that kind of stuff. I don't know.
So there is additional trees required in the corridor overlay.
Okay.
So they're mostly along the back, sort of trying to hide the building a little bit from the highway. I think is the primary purpose of the requirements. That's we have. Yeah.
We don't know if there's a plan.
We're getting it.
You did?
That is
Yeah.
Look at that, look at that.
There it is.
It's big.
That's it.
It's a big one.
That's the page. Well, I was trying to figure out the,
So, as you can see, there's a buffer yard between this and Home Depot.
right.
Trees along what would be the I-99 ramp, and then a heavy buffer yard in the rear is required to kind of buffer the, you won't even be able to see the building on the highway. So, and if you think about it, it sits down over the river, so more than likely, from most directions, you might not even see much of this building from the public street. There will be proposed, we'll have signage on it, that's separate from it. But you can see the extent of
None of the trees that are there were existing trees. They're all.
it. All the ones that we had shown there are proposed. That's correct. Let me amend that. There are some trees that are existing along that buffer yard there, but everything else that we have shown on there is proposed.
Okay, thank you.
So circulation around the building will be counterclockwise. Coming in here, sort of rotating around the building. You can see parking spaces, the garage doors will be here also. The office is in here, so that's the main entrance. This is an ADA accessible route that should go all the way out to Avenue Street across the front of each bank there.
Thanks.
Hey, what is the largest vehicle that can make the turn, on your design here, I'm just going to say, on the north side of the building, those two radius, that's,
We can get a WD-62, which is the largest permissible tractor trailer around the building.
how about a Pierce fire truck?
If we get the 62 around, we'll get a Pierce fire truck. I did not specifically run that.
And those, are these parking spaces at the edges near the corner? I know that these line spots are obviously no parking there, but are these sidelines, additional parking spaces?
The parallel spaces along the building, they are parking spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, these are parallel parking spaces along the building. But they don't go right up to the corners. There's no parking areas in the corners, so there's parking there.
Okay, so those two northern ones on either side of the building are not parking spaces. The ones on the east and west side.
Correct.
And then the two spaces on the north side, also next to the corners, are not parking spaces.
I apologize, I'm not sure what we're talking about.
So if you could show him, right?
Right
And
here.
that one? That one? Yeah. So
Those are spaces.
Yeah.
Those are spaces there.
okay, and then stop right there. Go back. Up. That was not up, that was down.
We have people coming in.
Okay. Actually, if you just want to approach, I'll just point here. And sorry for my quirk. This one and this one, I don't want to see that I'm having problems here on either side.
We ran a template with getting the truck around. It does encroach on
Yeah.
the parking area, but it does not encroach on the parking area.
Okay, thank you. So for everybody at home, if you didn't hear, the comment was, my question, the response to my question was, is those are parking spaces, but they ran the template with the truck, with the big rig truck, and it did not encroach on those spaces. So with that, are there any other questions? I see a big smile over there, Kristen.
No,
No?
no, just thinking.
James, any questions? Nope.
Good.
Nope, nope, nope. Okay. With that, does staff have any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. With that, may I have a motion? So moved. Okay, so the motion is we are going to approve it pending the conditions are met per staff's requirement, specifically to the wells. Was there anything else you wanted to reserve, or just?
I would just make the motion that it's per the January 30th memo and Patton Township staff comment letters from the 2 comment letters that we have.
Great, let's go with that.
Exactly what I meant.
Can we have a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone.
And with that disastrous start, we are now on to item 5, draft short-term rental ordinance review. Again, I'm going to remind the audience that we have a 5-minute time limit on comments. And given that this place is packed, we're going to enforce it. So with that.
Packed online, too. Yeah, there's a bunch of people online.
Keep it rolling.
Keep it rolling. Okay, so Jenna, take it away. Summer, take it away.
All right. On September 16th, the Board of Supervisors received a presentation from staff on short-term rental best practices and regulations. The board referred the matter to the Planning Commission and staff for further review. On November 9th, the Planning Commission received a presentation on short-term rentals, potential regulatory approaches, and received public comments. Staff has since conducted review and best practices regulations from other municipalities and potential regulatory strategies. So provided in your agenda is the draft ordinance along with a 2-page informational document just highlighting the key elements of the ordinance. So the purpose of this ordinance is to regulate short-term rentals to ensure safety, compliance, and community well-being while establishing permitting, inspection, and operational requirements. There will be 4 new definitions that will be added along with this ordinance amendment. I do want to point out the designated person in charge, which is required for owners living more than 25 miles from the property. The person must reside locally and be available year-round. So we broke the short-term rentals up into residential districts and commercial districts. The residential districts, the short-term rentals there will require owner occupied at least 6 months out of the year and must provide evidence of residency in that unit. The commercial districts have no occupancy requirement. Both have to be renewed yearly. Permit requirements, you will need a permit required to rent, advertise, or operate a short-term rental. They won't be transferable. They're valid for 1 year, and like I said before, they need to be renewed annually. The application must include the standard owner, local contact information, a rental housing permit from Center Region Code, proof of insurance, HOA notification if applicable, and a septic system evaluation if applicable. Operational roles, rentals will be capped at 60 nights a year. No guest parking is permitted on roads, and all parking must be on site. Short-term rentals are going to only be used for lodging, no outdoor camping or RV use, and owners must ensure that their guests follow local noise and conduct rules. permit revocation and penalties. 3 violations in a calendar year will result in permanent ineligibility for future permits. First offense, you'll get a written warning. Second offense, $500 fine. Third offense, $1,000 fine, and permit suspension. Posting requirements, you must have your owner, local contact information, maximum occupancy and parking limits, your trash collection schedule, and your township issued short-term rental permit must be visible from a door or window from the street. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Summer. Do we have any questions from the board members?
I'm just curious what the genesis of this was. I mean, it sounded like a presentation was made to the supervisors, so is this to resolve an issue or a complaint, or complaints that arose?
So it's kind of twofold. So there are some issues and complaints that we hear, primarily from a lot of residents within Park Forest. We have a lot of, I would call them quality of life issues with the short-term rentals. We have people that have a stormwater issue in Park Forest, and their neighbor lives in Philadelphia full-time, and they can't get in contact with them, and it's a private issue. The winter we've been having with all the snow, we've been running around chasing sidewalks that aren't being taken care of, and predominantly those are short-term rentals. They're owned by LLCs. So with some of the quality of life issues that we're having, but also we're going to be working this year on attainable housing regulations, and we understand, I was just through the housing market myself last year, that these short-term rentals are getting snapped up, and that's precluding people that want to live in our community from being able to buy a home and live in our community. And so we wanted to look, and we've looked at the regulations around us. Everybody but Harris Township and Patton Township in the center region have regulations. Bellefonte now has regulations. We understand we're in a hot area. However, our residential zoning districts were never set up to house small businesses, commercial businesses of any kind. We allow home occupations, so in our mind, an owner-occupied short-term rental in a residential zoning district is the equivalent of an owner-occupied or a home occupancy business. So that's kind of what we were looking at when we talked with the board about this. The horse kind of ran out of the barn on this a couple years ago. It's a hot topic all over the state of Pennsylvania. We do have case law on our side which says we can regulate where a hotel goes, and that's what these are, they're hotels. So that's why we wanted to start having this conversation and put some regulations in place.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, real quickly, there was item 4 on the last page of the summary. It says license for non-owner occupied short-term rentals granted prior. So is there something now? I don't know what that refers to if there aren't regulations. What is that?
Yeah, we don't have a current permit process for short-term rentals in the township.
So what does that refer to? It says license for non-owner occupied short-term rentals granted prior to the official date of the enactment of this article shall remain non-conforming. So what are those licenses?
Oh, that's if we wanted to, and we had to talk with the solicitor, that's if we wanted to grandfather in any of the ones that exist now. Bellefonte chose not to grandfather those in, or maybe they did grandfather them, I don't remember. Ferguson did not grandfather.
So this is if we chose to
If we chose, then
grandfather,
they would have
which
to.
require another set of
Are you-
by-how, right?
Amy, are you meaning specifically what you're talking about grandfathering in? Are you talking about people that are not living here 6 months out of the year that are
Right.
truly more of an LLC, not talking about like your next door neighbor that
Right.
rents it on football weekends but lives here all year?
Right, it would be the ones that are truly the commercial use within the residential
So
zoning
you're,
district.
okay, understood.
Yep.
The ones meeting the definition, the state's loose definition of hotel.
Yes.
So,
And we, like I said, that's a conversation we need to have with both the solicitor and then the Board of Supervisors when this ordinance eventually gets to them to discuss if we want to grandfather in anybody or if we just want to say, as of this date, we're not grandfathering in those uses that don't comply.
So is the township, I apologize, is the township viewing this as, with the short-term rentals, as two different issues in the respect of some of our neighbors that are supplementing their income by, you know, having those occasional football weekends or, you know, wrestling weekend rentals versus the LLCs that are not living here in town, like you said, that are scooping up those houses because, you know, whatever, that's their business essentially.
Right.
And they are using these as a traditional rental, but sort of circumventing all of the rules of
Right.
having a traditional rental.
Right, and we're looking at it, and I know Bellefonte, when we had talked with Bellefonte, there was a task force that was put together. When we talked to the task force, Bellefonte looked at it as there are uses that are purely commercial, and those are
Right.
the LLCs and the folks that don't live in
Right.
town, and they allow those in their commercial zoning districts. We
Okay.
happen to have these mixed-use districts along Atherton and Wattle Road that would be a great compatible place to have a purely commercial use, because there's other commercial uses around there. So we want to open the door, so if you have an LLC, you can buy a property along Atherton Street. Patton Crossing is going to have, for example, housing
Right.
in it. But if you're in Park Forest, I think Gray's Woods, their HOA doesn't even allow it. And that's the other thing, a lot of HOAs have outlawed it. But
Right.
if you're doing it elsewhere in a residential zoning district, it should just be either owner occupied, or I think we were talking about also the long-term tenant. You could have a long-term rental and just tell the tenant, you can stay 12 months out of the year, but whiteout weekend, we rent this out, so you have to stay elsewhere or whatever. But just so there's some stability within the neighborhoods.
I kind of have a problem with that, because if it's a fully furnished apartment that's furnished by the landlord, that's fine. But let's say I move into a place like that.
Yeah, that would be between, obviously, the landlord and the tenant, right? I mean,
Right.
but we would just open the door that could be one of the ways. The other thing we're looking at too with this is, there's the overall safety issue. These folks that are operating these short-term rentals and that are not living there, they're not going through any kind of a process to get a rental housing permit, have an inspection. You don't know if there's proper ingress or proper egress. You don't know if there's proper CO detectors or smoke detectors. You don't know anything.
Yeah.
And that's really buyer beware if you're running that, again, purely commercial use. If you go to a hotel in town, they have to go through all those processes. So we want to make sure that we're protecting the residents that are coming into our community as well, you know, from some of these uses that aren't safe.
And one of the things I want to stress to the public and to the members of this board is hotels are not allowed in residential districts.
Exactly.
Right.
So, you know, I have had conversations with individuals who are living next to a hotel use short-term rental. Every weekend they have new neighbors. So if we're talking about, we also have to look out for the safety of the residents that live here now, as well as those who are coming to Patton Township. Do we have any more questions from the board?
Quick question, do we have a line of sight on how many homes are owned by like an LLC? Understanding what that actual number or percentage is?
We know currently there's over 4,000 rental permits within the Patton Township right now. That's not specific as to who it's owner occupied, LLC, that it's not that detail specific. So as a broad, there's over 4,000 rentals. And just to clarify also too, one of the other things that we have to be cognizant of too is we cannot have these short-term rentals with an individual thinking they can turn their basement into a second dwelling unit, because ADUs are not permitted within Patton Township.
Right.
So there cannot be two separate kitchens, anything, I mean, I get it, you want to have your tenant be able to come and go as they please, cook or whatever, but that is an accessory dwelling unit and we do not permit those. The renter has to have access to the entire home.
So right now, when you say there's 4,000 rental housing permits in Patton Township that are registered to LLCs, are those just single-family homes? Or
No,
that's
no.
like,
She
Well,
didn't-
they're not specific to LLCs.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry.
just the total number of rental housing permits that are currently on file with the code office.
oh, got it, okay, thank
That
you.
would not be any,
Yeah, no.
short-term are not going to be included with
Yeah.
that because we don't have any.
No, that's why I wanted to make sure, because I was going to say, I know, like, for myself, I manage single-family homes as part of one of the, you know, many pieces of what we manage, and some of those are, you know, it could be, you know, our neighbor, and they do have just one home that they rent the right way, and they put it in an LLC because whatever their reasons are, whether that's tax, whether that's liability, whatever, and they are renting it, you know, long-term with a management company, et cetera. So I just didn't want anyone listening or otherwise to think, oh, that just could potentially be what we're talking about with a short term, because those could be someone doing it in a different way, not
Right.
using it in the short term.
We do have individuals that'll contact me asking about, short-term regulations.
Yeah.
Of course, my spiel is if it's less than 7 consecutive days, you don't
Right.
require a permit.
Right.
There are individuals, though, that decide to get the rental
Yes.
housing permit through the code office, thinking that, okay, if I don't Airbnb this, then at least I
Yes.
can have a full-time.
Absolutely, for sure.
And again, the ownership model has nothing to do with this. It's the use.
Right.
Correct.
Correct.
So saying LLC, I believe, was a shorthand of commercial use.
Okay, super.
Not a rental, not a long-term rental that's held in an LLC.
Right.
So, are there any other questions from?
The only
Yep.
thing I was going to ask was, do you have, when we went through this originally, the original presentation, you guys went through the other townships and the borough, what their differences are, and I wondered, did you? Yeah. Oh, I wondered if you had like a comparison, or things in ours very different from theirs, or is there any kind of little chart or graph that says we're doing these and not doing?
There's no graph created.
No.
We have our notes and research that we did prior to writing the ordinance, highlighting those differences, what we think would work in Patton versus what the borough's doing or College Township is doing. And
So what are the biggest differences between what just?
So the borough is kind of a different beast per se. We looked more closely at College Township and Ferguson Township and Bellefonte Borough. There weren't really a lot of, they're all very, very similar.
Okay.
Colleges was a little bit more thorough, so we leaned on them a little bit more. The proof of notification for homeowners association. What was the other one?
Yeah, we also looked at other places across the state of Pennsylvania. The Poconos, these have been particularly hot, and that's where the Pennsylvania Supreme Court case actually came from. So we looked at some of the definitions out of the Poconos, also Lebanon, Lancaster, and I believe Montgomery County as well.
Okay.
I think I would say that we pulled a little bit from every single one. Like, the borough doesn't have a septic evaluation requirement. Why? Because everyone in the boroughs, except for 5 homes, is hooked up to sewer, public sewer. So there's just different contexts. So that's why, like, the Monroe County one was very helpful for the rural areas. And how do we address homes that may have on-off septic versus hooked up to public sewer? So I would say we picked and pulled from a bunch of the ordinances, and not getting too far from what I would say College, Ferguson, Bellefonte have.
Right, okay. I was just wondering what they would feel like.
So, a couple of questions. On the permit revocation, it's a first, second, third offense. Would that be 3 violations, or are those 3 1 violation? Just out of curiosity.
So it's 3 violations. Your first offense would be a written,
And is that 1 violation?
yes.
Okay, and then the second offense would be a second violation?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I would think with that HOA notice, we might want to ask for HOA approval or confirmation as well. But, a little detail. In the conditions of permit, with the external person that said they have to be over 25, and this is an adult, do they have to be over 25, 21, 18?
25 miles.
No,
25 miles.
Okay. Just, or do we, when it says 3 as an adult, who an adult is, when earlier we'd say 25?
So in
Would you say over 21?
Yeah.
a lot of
That's
the
a-
HOAs,
that's-
it varies on age. I know that some of the ones that, like Paradigm, they have, you can have 3 unrelated unless the one is, unless he's not 21 or younger. So there is some, and they're all different, they're not the same.
Are you referring to renters?
That's
Or,
what he was referring to, I think.
oh, I thought he was talking about the designated person in
Well,
charge.
earlier it defines a designated person as being over 25, and I just noticed item 3 just says an adult individual. I just
Yeah.
define an adult as over 21.
That would be a policy question. What
I mean, maybe.
If you have any recommendations
Just maybe
or-
minutia, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
I know.
Since it said 25 for the external person, I thought that was
That's
interestingly
actually,
specified.
I believe it's a code requirement,
Okay.
Yeah.
that age requirement and the distance requirement from those rentals.
Well,
And that's
distance
more
is
just,
fine.
if there are issues, they're closed, we know we can get them there
And
quickly.
then item 3 says no adult activities, and maybe I'll regret asking, but what's an adult activity?
We had a discussion about this.
Prostitute.
So
Okay,
it's,
I'll just stop.
yeah, it's adult business-like activity. We've struggled with if we should put the definition in or how we want to put the definition in.
Okay, I'll just stop. There are a number of areas where it speaks to the number of vehicles, number of parking, and then bedrooms, or the bedrooms is mostly related to sewage. It sounds like the applicant can say whatever they want. Is that the intent?
No.
It's not defined in any
No.
way.
We will find out.
So we would potentially modify this. Okay.
For example, when a rental housing permit comes into me, they have to provide a sketch of the dwelling.
Uh-huh.
And, I mean, I've had people say, well, my neighbor's running an illegal rental. Okay, I'm not lying that they're probably not there, but when there's a change of ownership and the new
Right.
owner comes in to apply for rental housing and I find out there's a kitchen downstairs, that's denied immediately.
Right.
Okay.
So it is looked at very thoroughly.
Okay.
We have the septic permits on file. We know what that septic system is permitted for the number of bedrooms.
Okay. And this is probably a little picky, but under violations and penalties, it just says, any violations of criminal laws, et cetera, shall result in penalties or fines, and then there's a 1, 2, and 3. I would think we would say 1, 2, and 3 in addition to whatever the legal system determines. Not, these are the only ones. And then the only other little thought I had is on the summary, the posting requirements. Although I get it, and it would be nice to be able to track the 60 days, that's kind of a challenge to put in somebody's home, that they're using this for 14 days to put a sign in their window with all that information. But if that's the
You have
way
to
it
do
works,
that.
that's the way it works.
But you have to do that now. If you get a building permit or you get a zoning permit, you're required to post that. So we know that if you're doing any construction on your home, so it's not any different than that.
But then you take it down when the work is done. I had interpreted this to be permanent.
You can take it down if you're if you're running it out for football season, for example, you can take it down at the end of football
okay.
season.
I
You don't
thought
need to
that
have
was
it
like
up.
a permanent posting with all the information requested. It seemed a little odd for somebody's home.
And when you say sign, these are going to be like permit signs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking permit size stuff. We're not talking,
Right.
It'll be no bigger than 8.5 by 11.
yeah. All right, are there any other questions from the board before we open this up to the,
Well, that was okay. Later refers to adult.
let me get my phone out everybody. Okay, so how we're going to do this is we will start with one in the room. There's 3 people in the room right now. We'll start with one in the room, go to one on the internet, and then back to one in the room, get done with the 3, and then it'll be nonstop. So, and I'm going to make Jenna be in charge of, excuse me, there's 4 in the room. I'm going to make Jenna be in charge of who's picking. So I see there's a hand up. Is that somebody that wants to make a comment?
The hand has been up since the short-term rental discussion.
All right, we'll save that. We'll have her go first on the internet. All right, so who's first? Remember, you only have 5 minutes.
I'll start the timer.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, for letting me have some time today. My name is Eric Forian. I'm the guy who bought it. I have some properties that I developed, full disclosure, that's me. I think we have to address the Daniels. Neither property was fine, it falls into the packet. This is 4,000, we know that's not right. What is the right entry argument to determine what is truly the impact of this? I think that's important. William, you said that you talk to people who live next door to short-term rental. If you talk to me, I do as well. And I love it. I love it because I don't have any bad long-term rentals, which I've had. I've been a landlord for 20 years in a few different states that I moved around. My problems have never been from short-term people. It's always long-term tenants who create a nuisance property. I'm biased. I recognize that. So I'm approaching you as someone who has everything to lose. I'm aware of that. Amy, I take exception to what you say. The preponderance of the places that don't filter sidewalks or shorter-term renters, I don't know. I
I'm ultra conscious of that because I'm on the lawsuit. So I know what the state laws are and what I have to do, and I'm employed to do that. So I think we need to really define what the problem is before we do that. And I don't think we should paint short-term rentals with a broom. Are they nuisance properties? Some, yes. Some not. I could drive through Park Forest right now and I'll look at the properties that are in disrepair. The ones where the lawns are not kept, where there's trash in the yard, where there are broken down vehicles, where there are parties where there's excessive parking. And I don't know if all those are short-term rentals. In fact, I know they aren't. I drive through my neighborhood and I can point out the blighted properties, and the Harley gets fired up at midnight, and the truck gets up on blocks, and the shelters in disrepair in the driveway. It's not a short-term renter. And here's why I know. Because I own these, and I need to get bookings, and I need to get good reviews. And so I will not allow my property to be in disrepair. And I do my level best not to annoy my neighbors. And I try to keep my property in good order by posting good guests and putting restrictions in place that I believe are enforceable and not discriminatory. And so I just think it's a little unfair to say short-term renters or rentals are a nuisance and are the problem. I really think we need to pay attention not just to the homeowners who say, I don't want this in my backyard, but to the people who pay taxes as property owners in this township and others. And I think I have every right to a voice just as those people do. And I think there are ordinances on the books that you could enforce. Enforce your parking ordinances. Enforce your noise regulation ordinances. Enforce occupancy limits. And that can solve some of the problems. Work with the owners of short-term rentals to say, here's what we think is reasonable and prudent, what we should do so that we protect this neighborhood. We talk about safety. I haven't locked my doors in State College in 15 years. I'm not saying that there can't be a problem, but where are the crime statistics related to safety issues from this? I don't see it. And maybe I have my head under a rock, but I don't think I do. I also tell you that I think there are a lot of people helped by short-term rentals. The cleaner that I employ, 2 single mothers I employ who clean for me, who depend on that income, because they can't work during regular business hours because they have to take care of kids. The snow removal guy, the landscaper, the handyman, the property manager. These people receive income and get some of their livelihood from this. I get some of my livelihood from owning these places. I'm not going to give that up. I think you can all probably understand that. I also don't want to damage a neighborhood. I don't want anyone to live in a place where they feel uncomfortable. And so to the degree I can, I do not allow people to book my place without being discriminatory that I think would bring harm to a neighborhood. That would be unfair, and that just would be right. That's not how I'm wired. And the last thing I'd say is I don't think this is a cure for affordable housing. The last home I bought in Patton Township, I bought for $450,000 in a very short-term rental. That's not affordable housing. My sister can't afford it. She can't get a starter home, and it's not because it was a $450,000 home that I scooped up. It's a home I scooped up and I take great care of, and I'm very diligent about. I'm in it all the time, and I take care of that. But it's not good for affordable housing. Definitely. I'm sure there are other people who need to talk. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. Moving right along.
Is it Val? Yeah.
Hi, is it my turn?
It is.
Hello, I'm Val. I have an owner-occupied short-term rental, and I was looking into increasing. I barely rented it out in the past, but I was looking into increasing that, and then this kind of comes out. And I think the first thing I would like to ask, you cited a lot of research and complaints related to short-term rentals of, well, I guess they would be considered hotels, people who own the property, but do not live on the property as I do. And I'm just wondering why those of us who have owner-occupied properties are included in this ordinance to be considered.
So the issue, and we Again, we said earlier, I don't know if you heard it, we don't have an issue with the owner-occupied short-term rentals in the residential districts. We're going to cap the number of nights a year you can do them, and then we're going to require that you get a rental housing permit through the Center Region Code Office. And there's some other things within that, but you can continue to operate. What we're doing is we're trying to make sure that the short-term rentals that are allowed are safe, and that's why we're requiring the rental housing permit. I think that's something you're going to see everywhere across. I think there's, in the center region, people doing it now, but you're going to see that everywhere because that's a safety issue. And again, the insurance is also a safety issue as well to make sure everyone is covered if something were to happen. But we did say the owner-occupied ones that are in the residential districts, like I'm assuming you live in Patton Township, then you would be allowed to continue, as long as it's allowed by your HOA. Some HOAs have outlawed them. So you would have to provide proof that you've spoken with your HOA, and if you have a sewage septic system on your property, that you're sized right for what you have on your septic system.
Right, I read that, and I noticed that was not included in the PowerPoint, or at least I didn't see it. And that was, something that I was like, whoa, this has turned into a, hey, let me try and support myself with a little extra money to something larger. And I guess I would ask the board to reconsider, including those of us who, aren't trying to add to the issues of housing and environmental issues and whatnot. Perhaps we don't really belong in this ordinance. I don't know. I just feel like maybe that, homeowners who actually live in their home, take care of their sidewalks, monitor where people are parking and are, very present in this situation. Maybe we just should not be included. Could you please consider that?
Well, I think the problem is ultimately we have to define, and we have to define it broadly across the board. We cannot parse out one group from another group, because then we start getting into issues where there's a legal challenge. So where we have to do this is straight across the board and treat everybody equally. Now, you have 2 minutes if you'd like to respond.
I respect that answer. However, there's a real clear line there, and that's, the taxes that we turn in has very clearly whether you're a resident or not in your home. So I think it's a pretty clear line who lives in their home and who does not. But I don't know, perhaps there's something more complicated than that. I don't know. But I would appreciate it if that were considered. It is actually one reason why I purchased this property. And, this may actually cause me to have to move in here. I actually live here. I am a resident. And, I think that's, not fair for somebody who's a resident here in State College, as you were talking about being fair to those who are residents here in State College. I am a resident here in State College who happens to, need to make a little extra money. So I would appreciate it if it were considered. And again, you could look at the line of the taxes. Thank you so much for your time and all that you guys do to make things go. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we continue in the room, I did receive a text message from an audio guy who's paying attention to this and said, can somebody turn on the mic in the, at the podium, because apparently it's turned off.
Does it need a battery? Okay.
Is it transmitting?
CNET says it is.
Okay. Well, there you go, George. Sorry, I don't know. Next person in the room.
Good evening. I'm Liam Gold. I was here at the last meeting. We talked 3 months ago.
You were the one that was in favor of rental permits at the very minimum.
Yep, definitely rental permits at the very minimum. It's a safety issue inside the house. And I wanted to address a little bit more on the affordability issue. Right now, I'm pretty sure Patton Township actually has the most number of affordable homes for sale in all of State College School District, and that's when you combine all of the other municipalities and look at that. So there are a bunch of affordable homes right now for sale in Patton Township. What I do, and I've shared this with part of the group before, what I do is I do buy rundown homes. I put a lot of money into them. typically putting $60,000 to $100,000 into these homes because they're so run down and on the market as affordable homes and nobody is buying after 30, 60, 90 days. And it's tough to get those kind of units returned to market at these rates. You talked about you were looking for a place to buy. You were probably not looking at those homes because they're in such terrible shape. You have to put $60,000 to $80,000 into them. This is a way to do it. I don't know if you consider, I looked at some regulations, there's some regulations, I don't know if they made it anywhere, but New York State, if you put a certain amount of money into the house, you're allowed a short-term permit for a period of time. I don't know if that would be something that would be added, so that you could still have some of these rundown units in park boards, there's a bunch of park boards, but sidewalks don't get shoveled. They are owner-occupied for whatever reason, or run down, and, if somebody were to buy them, they could then pull some of that money out back out and get something like that in the ordinance. I'm curious on the grandfathering, if you expand on that, if you consider grandfathering existing permitted rentals, or?
I believe that is not something that this board has discussed. I believe that is going to be the Board of Supervisors discussion.
It's a discussion with the solicitor as well.
Okay. And then another question, do you guys know the size of the short-term rental problem? Like how many full-time short-term rentals you guys have?
So we don't know that for sure. We can't say because we haven't been regulating it. So that's what makes it hard to say. And also in the places that they are regulating it, for example, College Township has a pretty robust program and they were one of the first in the region. They still know that they only are a tip of the iceberg, right? They're not collecting everybody that has a short-term rental. They're not getting all of them. And I know that some folks that are doing short-term rentals that aren't regulated here are paying the hotel tax into the county because the county gets calls. And I guess if you do through Airbnb, they collect that tax and they submit it. So there's varying components to this, which makes it hard to track everywhere.
So I do use some software to kind of keep track of my competition to see who's out there. And I know there's roughly 40 full-time Airbnbs in Patton Township. There's, if you include some of the owner-occupied, they're doing it just for football, just for graduation, 14 days, keep under the IRS reporting rules. That goes up to about 100, maybe, but like the full-time that you're talking about is about 40 units. You said there were 4,000 rental permits in Patton Township. How many total housing units are in Patton? On the 2020 census said there was something like 100 to 200 total housing units in Patton, but that seems, one of the two numbers seems wrong, right? 4,000 or
The 4,000 includes single-family, duplex, townhouse, multifamily. It's not broke. We would have to go back through the code software to dwindle that down as to single-family.
And do you know just, I mean, like, the total number of housing units in Patton Township? Just curious.
No.
Okay.
30 seconds.
Pardon?
30 seconds.
Okay. That's fine. I'm just curious if you know the number of housing units. Okay. Thank you.
So I'm confused on the 4,000. Is that just permits that we're putting out for all residential?
That is long-term rental permits.
Okay.
So that would be for every single unit. So if you have
It's 7 consecutive days or more.
Okay.
So if you're, the fields over on, up there, that wouldn't be one rental permit. We would say that'd be like
So,
on top trees.
for example, the station in
Right.
Top Trees
Right.
has 400 and some units. When they apply for a rental housing permit, that permit has to list 420 units.
I got you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say all through Toft Trees, like everything that Berger has, those are individual
Yes.
units,
Yes.
so.
Okay.
For perspective, in 2017, the Borough State College had 10,000 rental permits in the borough itself.
Yeah.
In what, when?
In the borough, that was 2017, 2018, last time I did the rental permit map.
So
So there was
right
probably
as they opened the Metropolitan?
2 or 3 of those buildings were done.
Okay. Next person on the internet, please. And And please say your name, last name, and whereabouts in Patton Township you reside or where you reside.
Mark?
You, Mark?
Mark, are you here?
Hi there, sorry, having Zoom problems here. Trying to get my camera on, but I'm unable to do that. Anyway, thank you for having me, and I apologize for not being on video. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you for the good work that you do and for holding forums like this so that the public can also convey their opinions about any regulation. I just note a couple of things, if that's all right. One, that some owners take short-term rentals very seriously. They go through the permit process. They check on their dwellings multiple times throughout the year, and they hire professional property managers to ensure the integrity of their asset and to ensure the integrity of the experience that they're creating for their guests. I was in the hotel business for many, many years, and this affords me the opportunity to continue providing hospitable services for those that are traveling to our community. My intent here in buying the Airbnb was not, sort of the bad guy LLC, just a strict investment and never set foot there again. It was as an opportunity to potentially retire in State College in the future. So the intent was to find a dwelling. I happened to buy a ranch that's one floor, one contiguous floor, and a place that I thought I could age in place when retirement comes. So my intent was to pay down the mortgage and then move there when I can retire from the job that I currently hold. And being somebody that was in the hospitality business for so many years, I think it's important that you not underestimate the economic impact that this type of housing can afford to a community. As mentioned by somebody previously, there's probably, if you did the research, a significant amount of tax that goes from Airbnb to the community to support other community benefits. And elimination or overregulation may dwindle that economic benefit. In addition, it also creates an opportunity for more people to visit. As you know, there's only a certain amount of hotel rooms in the area, and when there are big events at Penn State or wherever it might be, this housing helps supplement the lack of hotel supply in the market. And as the prior person on Zoom mentioned, it provides flexibility for owners. In my case, to help offset the mortgage related to the asset so that I could live there in the future. And in her case, she can make ends meet potentially and needs this as supplemental income, especially with economic conditions as they are. One would think we would promote the ability for people to monetize similar housing more to help them out, especially the middle class, than sort of regulate it to remove that ability to do so. And I would also, condone sort of, I think, Liam's perspective that regulation is a good thing. I don't want to say that regulation is a bad thing. I think it is important that the level is leveled and that everybody who does short-term rentals has to get a rental permit, and there has to be a safe and secure environment. And I would challenge you to look at maybe the disparity between those that operate the short-term rentals in a very meaningful and responsible manner versus those that are not, and really focus in on the problem that you're trying to solve, as opposed to sort of penalize those folks that have been trying to do good work for themselves and the community at large. And that concludes my statement. Thank you for giving me the time. I do have one question, just a clarifying question. I think the first or second slide noted that you either had to live on premise for 6 months a year, or I didn't catch if there was an or you can have a designate that lives within 25 miles. Could you clarify that you're not removing that expectation that there's a responsible party that lives within 25 miles that could be in place instead of you having to live at the property for 6 months? There's both of those options, or could you clarify that further, please? Thank you.
My understanding is you have to live at the property for 6 months out of the year to be an owner-occupied structure. And then you don't have to be the individual that is the property manager. It is, you can have a designate be the property manager for those 60 days when you were not there, because the rental permit limits you to 60 days. Does that clarify it?
Yeah, it does. It's disappointing, and I hope you reconsider. I hope you'll reconsider that. Or at a minimum, try to grandfather those folks that sort of bought their asset for this specific purpose and intent, and not penalize them for doing that, because that could create a really awful impact for many of us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next person in the room.
Hello, my name is Kylie Hockenberry. I'm a little nervous. I don't speak publicly very often, but I just wanted to tell you the background about our family. We moved here in 2010. We loved the area. We loved that there was a focus on education, and we wanted our son to be a part of that. And he is now graduating from state this year. But 5 years into moving here, it was a struggle to raise or to pay our bills, and I was dealt a very devastating health blow, and so I turned to Airbnb because I just needed extra money to get over that hump, and it just turned out to work really nicely for us. I was nervous about renting to strangers, but we really loved it, and we spoke with our neighbors about it. They all have our phone number, our neighbors, and we're very active with our rental, and it's definitely not being, like you said, let go and not handled properly. We make sure everything is taken care of, because we don't want liability, we don't want neighbor complaints. It's just been a lifesaver for our family, and so to have that taken away, it would definitely be devastating. And my husband is, he's about 20 years older than me, and now he's on Social Security now, and it is not, something that you can really afford to live on. So it's definitely a huge part of our family to do Airbnb, and it's been, just like I said, just a blessing. And as far as regulation, I would be all for that. I don't want anything to jeopardize our guests' health or our neighbors at all. But the 60 days would definitely hurt us financially. And right now, State College is very affordable. My stepkids live in cities, and it would just be unattainable for us to move there. We just can't afford it. And frankly, I don't want to live in a city. I like our little neighborhood and town, and I want to be able to live here and comfortably, where I can go and have, dinner at the tavern without, using my credit card, and just have a nice quality of life. But I would definitely, be in support of regulation, but the 60 days maximum would definitely be.
So, just curious, what number of days would make sense to you?
I don't really have an answer to that, but...
Well, obviously you do, because you're saying 60 days is not enough.
You're right, exactly, you're right. I know that the borough, I think, has about 120, but maybe possibly, half of the year. I really, I would say about half the year.
How long do you live here?
We've lived here since...
Sorry. How many months a year do you live here?
I live here full time. Yeah, I live here full time. So
Even when you're renting your house?
Well, so like I said, our stepkids live in the city. They live near DC and then also near Philadelphia, and so we visit them frequently. Actually, I just became a grandma. I know that seems strange, but so we visit them frequently. We'll either take that time to go visit friends and family. But yeah, we're very lucky in that way. But it's not something that we don't want to live near them permanently. But this allows us to afford our home and have a good quality of life. And I'm very present. I'm very present at our property and with I would be for regulation, but the 60 nights would definitely be a huge hit. And I don't know if I would be able to afford to continue to live in State College at that point.
I have two quick questions.
Yes,
Number one, do you live in Patton Township?
I do, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
Because you keep saying State College. Our address is State College.
Yes, Patton Township.
Second thing is someone within 25 miles to check in when you go to DC or Philadelphia or wherever while you're renting your unit?
Well, our neighbors, for sure. And we also, a lot of times we stay with a friend, and she's in Goldsworth. And
Okay.
so we are definitely very present. We're very present for our guests, and we're very present for our neighbors and our neighborhood. We do have some experience with a long-term rental. It was a family that, their kids had disabilities, and so we gave them a lot of rates. We
Okay.
gave them a lot of rates. I'm sorry.
Yeah, your 5 minutes is up, and we've got a lot of people, sorry. I don't want to be rude, but
Thank you.
today is the day I get to be rude.
Don't be rude.
Thank you.
That's only for those who live within 25 miles away.
But she says she goes out of town
She's
a
out
lot
of
of times.
town.
She'd have to have someone when she's away.
Would you
I guess
have
that
to?
would be-
Because Center Region Code, like, I'm the person in charge and I go out of town, like, for all of our properties. Is that something different for a short term?
Well, I'm just reading, it says required for owners living within 25 miles from the property, but she doesn't.
Well, that's, I guess I was trying to understand. Is
So
that is that Center Region Code's requirement, or would that be something Patton Township's requiring in addition, like kind of mimicking code? Okay.
And
Because the concept behind that obviously is if there's an emergency.
There's an
but
issue.
again, like, obviously sometimes I go out of town,
Sure.
but I just let someone know, like, I have a team. So obviously if I'm out of town, I'll get the call and I'll call someone on my team.
Yep.
But,
correct, there has to be a person.
Yeah.
There has to be the quote-unquote key holder.
Okay.
And in the case, in this case, James, if you're on vacation in Hawaii for 3 days, you're living in Hawaii for the next 3 days.
oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, you're
that's
not flying back here.
Do you
for
think
the-
25 miles is really enough? I mean, if somebody lives here, Huntington is still far away. We would still require a manager to manage that property.
I would say, driving all over the court, to all the different
I would
courts.
say more of a 50-mile radius, because how long is that going to take you? An hour to get to that property?
Depending on how far away or how many different areas. 25 miles can be anywhere from 15 minutes to an
Right,
hour.
that's true.
So I think what they're worried about is an hour to get somebody there.
So an hour would be to Huntington, and that would take me 30 minutes, 35 minutes.
I mean, I think in reality, well, at least, I mean, I don't know on the short-term respect, but I think it's more of the idea if there is a catastrophe, because, I mean, no one's going to wait for me with a key. If they
Right,
need to get in, they're getting in.
Right.
Right, okay.
And it is a code requirement. If you get a
Right.
code rental permit, that's in the
Yes.
code requirement. But we're making a note of some of the things that we're hearing tonight so we can go back. We're not trying to push anything through, right? We're going to make sure this is properly vetted and discussed. So we're making a note of some of these items and we'll go back and look and see what's in
Yeah.
other regulations.
Are there any more public comments?
Oh, what? Are there any more public comments on the internet?
Wait, there's somebody here.
I know, but it's the internet's turn. Going once,
The internet,
going twice,
like that.
speak up or hold your peace.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you. Go ahead, Will, where are you from?
My name is Will, and I'm from Patton Township. My property is in the Woods Edge community. I've heard a lot of the things you said today, and I think the previous speakers have made a lot of good points regarding taxes. I started by living in my property for 3 years and started Airbnb in it after COVID to kind of get some extra money. What I did notice is that the effort and time that I put into my property was significantly more beneficial to my neighbors than the full-time rentals that are being managed by large companies in my community. Often they have they have flooded basements. They have larger groups of people living there that were a little more disruptive. You know, college-age kids that were a little more disruptive. So, you know, I'm at my property twice a week at the minimum. I do still stay there from time to time when it's not rented for convenience purposes, but you know, it would be a significant impact to me, and I do think there's some benefit to looking at grandfather people in. I also have permits. I've had permits the entire time, even though I did not technically need to have them. Like, as one of your board members stated earlier, some people like to have them just in case, you know, things do change. But I do know when I first started renting it as a long-term, you know, I was never in the place, so I didn't see the place for 8 months until they moved out. Then I had significant damage to take care of. Where in this mode, I'm in there after every rental. I'm in there inspecting it. I'm making sure that the property is up to code, that it's safe, that the first aid kit is stocked, that the fire extinguisher is working. So like the fire detectors are working. All these things are being monitored around the clock. And I would ask you to listen to the voices of the people that are in this community that do make it better, that make it better environment for the people living around them. And keep in mind all the renters that don't have the same effect on the community. The students that are renting a house off Atherton, I don't think they're getting the same amount of care. And I'd ask you to not paint with a broad brush. You know, there are good actors here. There are people that are putting a lot of tax money back in the community and that are helping. And if there wasn't a demand for this, if there wasn't a demand for the rates of the hotels, this wouldn't be there. You know, there's a reason people are looking for this. There's a reason. It's parents coming to see their children and being able to cook a meal for them and have them over to the home to spend time with them when they're having a hard time or adjusting to college. We're having them over to your hotel room on Atherton is not the same. You know, it's not the same. It's not the same environment, and that's why people are going to this model. It's not that we're undercutting; it's we're providing a better experience. So, thank you. Am I able to yield my time to Liam?
Nope.
If I have any left over?
Nope, that wasn't established at the beginning, so no.
I do have a question. When would this go into effect, and is there a map online of these zones? Because you guys put it up for a few seconds, and I wasn't really able to make much sense of it.
So our zoning map is on our website, and right now, we're still in the discussion stage, so it depends on when it would go to the Board of Supervisors and when they would want to actually take action on this, but I don't anticipate this will go to the board before at the end of March, beginning of April at the earliest. And then they would have to have discussion, it has to be advertised before we could actually enact the ordinance.
Okay.
So summer
Could be summer, yeah.
at the earliest? Ish. Okay. With that, final person in the room. Thank you very much, Will.
Hello, everyone. My name's Radisson. I'm actually Hadley's son. We've been family here since 2010. Live in Patton Township. We actually own two properties. We absolutely love everything that you guys do. We really do appreciate it. Of course, me and my family. I really wanted to go to Penn State. I don't think that I would have been able to go to Penn State without there being Airbnbs. It was my parents, you know, a lot of their income between my mom's health crisis and also job insecurity and stuff like that. So it really, really made an impact in my every single day. Just to be able to go and afford tuition at Penn State, which is obviously a very, very expensive school as well. So I really, really do appreciate there being Airbnbs to sit there and supplement my family through these hard types of times. Like I said, we have two. One is right behind Walmart there, and then we have one towards Skytop Road as well. All we're asking as these hotel prices are skyrocketing. You guys
Can
know-
I stop you really quick? So you have 2 houses?
2 properties, yes.
I
Both
thought
of them Airbnbs.
both of the bear.
No, the one is our,
Well, yes, they're not Airbnbs, we live in them, yes. So, I hope that clarifies that.
Okay, please continue.
Yeah, of course. And as these hotels get higher and higher, it's not affordable for people outside of town to come and visit. People that are Airbnbs help let them come and visit. State College, as my parents did years and years ago, to, they found this great town, they want to live in it, they want to raise their children in it. I hope that Airbnbs help make that possible. Some of the new things that I've seen is a 60-day policy. I stand with my mother. If we moved to a 60-day policy, it would be detrimental to us. We wouldn't be able to afford to live there. We would have to move out. I'm not going to be here, but my family still will be. So it's really, really important that there's some way that they're taken care of. I would hopefully like to incur like the 180-day policy. That'll make it much more manageable, a lot more affordable for us and make us be able to live here. And then additionally, we are always in great favor of permits. We don't want to see the Airbnbs that are run down and ruined. We put thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into our Airbnbs to make sure that they're great for our guests. It's really, really important to us that they have a really safe environment. Like my mother said, we have, all the contacts of our neighbors to ensure if anything goes wrong. I'm also always around the college as well. I can travel back to the property, help them out with anything that they need if the guest does come into an issue or anything arises. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that Brett up there on his iPhone?
Allison wanted to make a comment. She was next in line.
Okay, great. Let's go with Allison.
Hello, I'm Allison Weir. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, we just can't see you.
Yes, I was trying to play around with my video and I couldn't get it loaded, so I apologize for that. But thank you for allowing me this time to communicate my sentiments as well. I purchased a condo in Patton Township 3 years ago and take great pride in the home and actually hire Liam to manage our property. And he's been doing a tremendous job with our condo. I am not there, I do not live there, but I do come out for 1 week every quarter and stay in our condo for 1 week every quarter and fixing it up. And our condo is in great shape. It's highly attended to between Liam and his team doing a tremendous job, which I can attest to because in the last 3 years, I have nothing but 5-star reviews from every single guest who stays in our condo. So I really would hate to see owners like us impacted by such decisions and would love to request that people who are managing our properties successfully and with integrity and really taking great care of our condos, that we could be grandfathered in, and then request that I understand how security and safety would be important, that maybe just consider having just security and safety standards for those that do operate Airbnbs. That seems very reasonable to request and expect. But there's such a great community impact and community benefit to what we're doing for those that are operating very well. There is, providing income for property managers, to house cleaners, to contractors who are coming out to maintain our properties. We're really over the top in taking care of that, and it is providing income and jobs for people locally in the community. And for the service to our guests in our communities, I also share those same sentiments that a couple other speakers had contributed towards. We've had guests who've had children who are in college who have medical issues and the family comes stay in our condo so they can treat and be there and care for the kids' medical needs, to traveling professors, to there's so many different guests of ours that hotel industry is not going to accommodate or service their needs. And they're tremendously grateful for coming to have a home experience. And we have not had any issues or complaints with any of our guests in the last 3 years. So we really are managing this really well. Thank you to Liam and his team. So I would really hate to lose this opportunity to be able to provide this service economically and for the service for our community as well.
So, just to clarify, you only live in your house 1 week per quarter?
Correct.
Where do you, if I might ask, where do you reside the rest of the time?
Iowa. I am a Penn Stater, and I love coming to Penn State. And I plan to continue always coming to Penn State. And my son's a student there now. And my father was, it's a very legacy in our family of Penn State and the Penn State tradition.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, thank you for your time, and I really, like I said, request that those of us who are managing effectively to be grandfathered in and focus more on the code instead of a limitation on days or where you reside. I think that's immaterial to whether or not you're successfully running and managing and taking this truly to heart, the hospitality. That's really what's more important than these other details.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming, Alyssa, or thank you for appearing, Alyssa. There's nobody else in the room, so next person on the internet, please. I know I saw Brett up there. Brett's probably driving back from something.
He doesn't have his hand up.
He doesn't have his hand up. Okay. This is your 5-minute or 5-second countdown. 4, 3, 2, 1. Comments are now closed. All right. Now for today, we are not having to act on this, correct?
Correct. So I would ask, we jotted down, as we were going through this, some of the things that we heard. We'll put together a comparison of our proposed regulations versus the other center region regulations for you guys. We can look into the 60-day limit. I would say that, in these owner-occupied short-term rentals, I'm equating them in my head to the home occupation regulations that we have, which sets a cap on the square footage of your house that can be a commercial, an office-based business, a home-based business. So I would think with the days we're renting, we'd want to look at some kind of a balance and also be consistent with what the other communities around us are doing. I think a lot of them are doing 60, some might be doing a little less, some might be doing a little more, but we'll present you with some options on that at the next meeting. We will look into the New York State regulations that were referenced about if you put money into a home, just so we can say that we've looked. And I also want to look and see if we can come up with a list of where short-term rentals aren't allowed right now per HOA. I suspect that some of these places that are short-term rentals now are actually not allowed per HOAs, but the HOAs don't know. But I'll see if we can get a list of that so we can truly understand, again, the problem itself, and we can think about where the problem actually is versus where it isn't. And then if there's anything else you want us to look into, we can certainly do that as well.
The one thing I don't understand is the grandfathering, like how that would work, so.
Yeah, we'll talk with Betsy about that. Maybe I'll see if Betsy can come to our meeting in March and talk to you about that as well.
One of my concerns would be for, we have one speaker, people that have multiple units and have had multiple units for a long time. How do we accommodate them? Does he need a permit for each one, but he can still do it? Or permit for him for however many units he has.
So I think we would want to be consistent with how the code office does rental housing permits now. So there's an individual rental housing permit for each unit that you're renting. So you would have to get an individual permit. I would think that would be the recommendation. Because the more we can keep these consistent with the code office, the better off we're going to be in the long run.
Because ultimately, it's going to be codes that is doing the enforcement on this.
Some of it, yes, we'll do some of the enforcement as well.
And is that where the residency part comes in? Code or not?
That's us. That's a regulation that we're proposing, which is one that's in Ferguson and in College Township as well.
It's a standard practice
Yeah.
across multiple other short-term ordinances around Pennsylvania.
Time varies, but.
Because as I understand it, when I looked at this and sent emails back and forth with you, we don't allow hotels in residential. And when you have it being operated as a commercial business for hotel use, that has an impact of, one, it takes out a residential home. Two, it takes out the potential of a family being there. Three, it takes out the potential for somebody to move from a starter home to a mid-size home. And in that case, in the last case, we had a condo that would be a starter home. So that does impact. And if we were to take that there's only 40, that's still 40 families living in Patton Township. And ultimately, we also have to look that there is more than a short-term economic, win or cost. Everything has a win, everything has a cost. What we are here as a board to do is give our best recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on what we believe we want Patton Township's economic costs and stuff to be. So with that, is there any more discussion on this topic?
So I agree with some of the things that you said, but I can tell you that there is affordable housing in Patton Township, in condos in town, and some houses in Park Forest. Some of those affordable houses are wrecked to no end, that they would have to go in and completely remodel those. And I think having this, Liam talked about how he goes in and does a flip and makes that house better.
But he doesn't do a flip.
Well, but I'm saying for a short-term rental. That is giving an opportunity to keep our community looking good. I can tell you that in Patton Township, we have a lot of homes that are owned by residents that are atrocious. And they're not, they won't sell they'd have to come in and remodel them to make it, and they can't afford that. So you can take someplace like Patton Forest, and those are, what, 200,000? Those are affordable homes in our neighborhood. So I think we have to kind of look at it from not just the perspective of affordable housing, but I think you also have to take it where these guys are providing community service, but they're also making our community look really good.
And what I'm saying is, everything has an economic and social cost. And what I am trying to impart upon everybody on this board is it is our duty to figure out where we want to land on that.
Sure.
So we're not going to discuss it today. I want you guys to think about it because we're going to be discussing this a lot more.
Can I just add one thing? I mean, I definitely echo your statements, but I also want to point out, so I do manage professionally short-term rental that's in Ferguson Township where they do require short-term, permits and have to go through that process. And to some of the stories that I heard today, I will say there are some needs that are met by the short-term, not all the time. I mean, some of them are just your traditional football weekends, but there are some needs that are met by short-term rentals that are not met by hotels. Like this particular one, we had some folks from the, I think it was a volleyball team, they must have been playing over Thanksgiving, so the families were not able to spend Thanksgiving, so they were able to use that home to have Thanksgiving for the team. They could not do that, obviously, in a hotel. When I was hearing someone on there speaking about using the condo to care for someone who has, an illness in their family. So the reality is, those are things that couldn't necessarily happen in a hotel. And whether we like it or not, our hotels, they're businesses as well. They're maximizing those high-traffic weekends to take the prices through the roof. I mean, I had family come in over the holiday that we had to cram them all in our houses because they could not afford to stay in the hotels in this town because it's 2-night minimums and the prices are through the roof. If I had been smart and got on Airbnb, I could have put them in an Airbnb for a much more cost-effective price, and we would have been able to spend time together as a family making memories. But I mean, we did that anyway, crammed in our own tiny space. But my point is, you have that point, that this is another thing. So there could maybe be a meet in the middle, like maybe we cap how many we allow in the township, or I don't know. I don't feel like this is a one-size-fits-all, even though I totally agree with you that is typically, I mean, I live in a fair housing world, and I live in is it in the four corners of the contract? I get that. But I feel like, for me, when I'm listening to this, I came in here with one mindset, and I feel like we are looking at this too singularly, so I have to digest that.
And I guess whereas a lot of people might be looking at me, you have a one-track mind on this. No, I've been stuck in the same boat on whether it be affordable housing or other housing issues in Patton Township since 2000. So I've been hearing a lot of this over and over and over and over again. And a lot of people doing this, it's that person's fault, it's that person's
Agreed.
fault. It's the developer's fault for not building more, it's the government's fault for not doing this, it's your fault
This
for
is every day of my
managing
life.
rentals.
Listen, this is
bad,
every day
you
of
know.
my life.
So-
Pick up the phone and get screamed at. Trust me, I know.
So, I'll come back to you.
Okay.
With that, I just want everybody at this board to be thinking about what is the economic cost, what is the social cost, what is it that for you guys, think about this, because I know we have 3 new board members. So it's getting you guys in that mindset of understanding that it's not just, and if we're going to accept that there's only 40 of these rentals, right? How is that going to impact the community as a whole, not just?
Oh, no, and these are conversations I have on a professional level, the same as you, for years and years and years. So
Yeah.
this respectfully, isn't the first time I've had these conversations. Maybe in this room they are, well, actually, not even in this room, because I was on Patton Township Housing Task Force. But, so I get what you're saying. I just, for myself, I just don't want to come into this with just the singular, governmental thought process, or just with only my associate real estate broker hat on, saying like, here's what the contract says, because I just think we have to think about our community too, and the folks in our community, thinking, again, certain things that never even crossed my mind. Of all the conversations that I had, someone said tonight about, thinking that this was an end, a means to an end, that they would retire in that home someday. That thought never crossed my mind. That someone is living somewhere else but plan to come back here someday. And so, there are other pieces involved in this, I guess.
One thing I would suggest too, when we're looking at the HOA docs on different companies, I have run into this many times where the HOA docs say one thing but do not present what they're saying. I had a property, and this was in Belfin, it wasn't in Patton Township, but they couldn't tell me that this was a rental unit that I could rent out. And being the agent, I really needed to know, and I called 5 times, looked at the HOA. So I'm just saying that we really need to dissect those HOA documents and reach out to the HOA leaders, because they're not always correct.
Well, not only they're not always.
The question I had, the person online who didn't live here and had the condo, because I would think that most condos would have HOAs.
Some do, some don't,
Oh,
and
some don't?
some don't play the game that they say they are. And a perfect one was Amberley out in Belfont. I'm trying to find out if there's short-term rental, and it doesn't say. And in Benner Township, there's no you can have short-term rental. So there's a lot of back and forth that I think we really need to take into consideration on.
So what you're saying is HOAs aren't sometimes very ambiguous.
Right, and sometimes they'll say you have to have 3 unrelated, but the one unrelated has to be 25. Some say they're 18, some say they're 21. So they all play different games and different rules.
Okay. And then I had one thing I thought of, it's kind of a cost thing, but, I mean, the people that have these, they're paying property tax, that's going into our school system, but they don't have students eating that up, so that actually is a little bit of a benefit as far as that goes to the community.
Or an opportunity cost at the same time. Yes, that.
I mean, it's just something to think about when we're weighing out the costs and benefits of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So just as a suggestion, between now and our March 3rd meeting, if you have questions or ideas that you want us to look up before the meeting, send those to us, and we can certainly incorporate that into our research before the next meeting. There isn't a timeline for this on terms of when we need to have the board consider it for action, so we can take as much time as you guys want to feel comfortable with what we're looking at. So, and we can be as creative as we want to be with these regulations. We're just trying to get somewhere with this.
Yeah. So, but by the next meeting next month?
By March, if you have any other suggestions, send them to us, and we'll continue the conversation next month.
It's interesting that we've had 2 of these meetings where we've had members of the community, but nobody's come to complain about the Airbnb.
So it's funny, I spoke with a resident in Park Forest this week, and he's a very nice gentleman. And I said to him, he said, oh, all the houses around me are getting sold and they're becoming LLCs. I look at the deeds. And I said, yeah, that's an issue. And I said, we're looking at these regulations, so I really encourage you to come to a meeting, bring your neighbors, because I said, again, we've heard from all the folks that have the short-term rentals and not, it was nice tonight to hear from some that actually live in Patton Township, because the first time it was all out-of-town people. But, you know, I said it would be nice to hear the other side as well, so.
Just tell Park Forest that we're going to consider them being,
No.
letting them
No.
be turned into.
Don't even say it.
Airbnb community.
No, I was actually going to say something else.
I guess
Just don't even say that.
Does it really matter if they're LLC or a homeowner, you know, does it?
Well, I think in this gentleman's mind, he looks up where they're from.
Yeah.
And he says, well, it's an LLC out of the one neighbor was out of India. So it's an LLC out of country. I don't know that they live here. That it's just not an investment property, nobody lives there. And then if he has an issue, like he had an issue with some of the neighbors not taking care of their sidewalks. And so he doesn't have a neighbor he can go knock on the door and say, hey, I fell in front of your house, could you please take care of your sidewalk? So I think that's the concern, right, with some of these. Again, we had the gentleman over the summer, a different gentleman, who had a stormwater issue, and it wasn't anything the township could do, it was a private stormwater issue. And I said, well, you need to talk with your neighbor. Well, my neighbor lives in Philadelphia, and he rents it out every weekend. I don't know who my neighbor is.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of stuff that's, and when people say like, but you don't really, I talked to a gentleman from, I think he was from State College, he was talking with the police chief, then he was talking to me about this. We don't really have crime. Well, it's not really the crime, it's the stuff that makes your neighborhood a nice neighborhood to live in. And yes, sometimes you do have bad long-term tenants that live next to you. I think everyone's had that experience, but you at least know who that person is, or you know who you can call. These folks don't even know who they can call.
A lawyer.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then we run into the issue of we don't know, because it's some foreign LLC, that we can't track it down.
You can't sue?
And we can't find, so then we have to go through an even more expensive process of where we would have to get somebody and get notice on somebody that they're being sued. So it really creates problems. So at the very least, I think what we've heard from the community, at the very least, everybody seems to be on board with some form of registration of these units, so that the next door neighbor can get a hold of it. The lawyer can figure out who slipped on the ice in front of it.
Quick question on snow. Coming back to this, I know you guys have a grass ordinance.
We have a snow ordinance.
There was a long-term, like a homeowner that let their grass go, when I called in you guys,
Yep.
like immediately they got cut. Like, why aren't they calling you guys to say, hey, this house needs to be?
Oh, they have been. We've had snow for the first time in a couple of years, so that's one of the things. I get nice long emails of places that haven't taken care of their sidewalks, which is what people should be doing.
Right.
And it's more than, we have 24 hours to clear a sidewalk. It's more than 24 hours after. So that's why the snow is the hot topic in my mind right now.
Oh, because we just got our first snow.
Well, one value of registration of some sort is I heard 4,000 is something and 40 is something. We don't seem to really know what the problem is. It would be, I think, quite valuable to have some sense of what we're actually talking about.
Yeah, well, we have the 4,000 rental housing permits. Those are long-term
But they're
tenants.
long-term,
Yeah,
that's
that's not
what
short-term. Right. Short-term is way more than 40. I mean, I can tell you from that task force that we sat on, they had some data. And one of the things we would look at, I think, if we did enact a short-term rental ordinance, State College Borough was using Granicus, which they're not using, I think, anymore, but some kind of rental, there's a software company that we can use to mine the data, because you'd have to hire 3 people to work full-time just to mine where all these things are, but we'd be able to then track them down. State College had pretty good luck, and I think College Township was also using Granicus maybe. So we can look into that as well.
Also, along the line of hiring 3 people, I see the Township Engineering, Planning, and Zoning Department will manage this monster. I hope you're ready for that.
Well, that's where we're talking about, we're looking for a regional solution, because I think that Harris Township eventually will talk about this as well, and eventually we'll all have a regional model.
It was interesting that most of the people who spoke, which probably are the law-abiding citizens, all seem to say all the things I do are exactly what we're asking for, except, okay, 2 permits and liability insurance, it probably helps you as well. It seems the fundamental point is the number of days. And
yes.
I was just thinking through 7 football games, 3 graduations, arts festival, parents weekend, you're on almost 50 days just in that. Maybe that is an awfully tight number, but it would be interesting to see what the other local municipalities have as a limit. It does seem that's pretty short. If we're saying you can live there 6 months but only use it for 2, what do you do with the other 4 months?
I think there was one model we looked at that they capped their days at 45.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Seems awfully challenging.
And when we looked at 60, we tried to take into account football, Arts Fest,
Yeah.
graduation. Because, I mean, we understand, it's just like in the Poconos, it's ski season, right? People want to go up there when it's cold, right? So we tried to look at what our tourist, I mean, I'm from Hershey, right? So what our tourist season is, which is totally opposite from Hershey's tourist season, and so that people then could monetize if they wanted to do this, they would be able to still monetize on it.
Well, again, just devil's advocacy, if they follow the guidelines, why do we care?
Well, I think we care, again, because it does erode the stability of a neighborhood, right? And it's the same.
Would it be empty for 2 months, eroded more?
It's the same argument that I think we've been having all over State College, not just Patton Township, but in the borough and elsewhere, about the rental housing market. And I think you hear people that would, I know when I worked in Harris Township, up on the hill, which is where I lived, there were a lot of rentals up there. And people would say, this is ridiculous. We would like long-term residents to live here, not just tenants. We want to have people that are invested in the community. So I think there's a balance we have to strike, and we haven't found the right balance. But the other problem is, the horse is roaming in the pasture right now, right? Because this kind of took off. I mean, and we have to look at, is there a way that we can bring the horse at least partially back in the barn? And then we can kind of see what changes happen. I know the state of Pennsylvania, I know the legislature, our local senator is really against this kind of, any kind of short-term rental housing regulation. So I'm afraid that at some point the state may step in and try to preempt our ability to do anything. And in places that are having significant issues with their short-term rentals, that really hamstrings you. Then you can't really address it. So if we can find a balance, and I like Kristen's point about trying to be maybe creative in that and not thinking singularly, that would, I think, be helpful.
Can I just ask the people that are here? So the 60-day thing is definitely an issue, correct? With all of you? And then what about the owner-occupied portion of things? Is that it?
Like I said, I buy homes that are in significant disrepair. I put a lot of money into them.
That's right.
I live in Ferguson Township. We are here locally. I am in Patton Township daily at different homes. I work with my hosts. I'm in their homes. I am a contractor with them. I shoot the money today, and I apologize about that. I'm here working in town, and so I am not an owner-occupied person, but I am trying to better my own family, and by doing this, and I have a skill set, and I'm trying to use that, and not, flipping a home and talk about that. It's like, okay, I'll buy this starter home and then sell it for $450, which is no longer a starter home.
More affordable.
Right, it's definitely more affordable, and so this is the way that I can do this, and it does, I can tap into my skill set, but I am not owner occupied in either of those two
two biggest issues, I think, and that's what I think what we also heard from the people online.
But it'd be interesting to hear what you come up with grandfathering ideas.
Yeah, we have
Some of those people who are here now.
We have to talk with our solicitor, because the one thought, and I'm not saying that we've talked about this much at all, but some places they grandfather until the property changes hands, and then they lose the ability.
Makes sense.
Oh, I think that's what Bellefonte did. I think Bellefonte.
And part of that process is documenting the fact that that use has been there, it's a pre-existing non-conforming use.
Right.
So there is still stuff on the back end that staff have to do to provide that proof that this has been used like this for however many years, and that they get to maintain that vested right.
Well, that's actually one way of getting an answer to how many of these are being done, is if we actually put forward an ordinance that said, if you want to have this grandfather, you have to register now as a non-conforming use.
I believe at the borough, when we did the student home licensing, that lasted 2 years, trying to get all of the proof and data from those individual property owners that had that student home since the 70s. And they had to go back and provide leases and everything, so we could include that in the file with the parcel.
But, you know, if we want to find out how many short terms there are, if we put forth a request that some sort of registration now, just to be current, for them just to be current, and have any chance at.
We'll talk about that with solicitor, and I'll see if she can attend the March 3rd meeting to talk some more with you about this.
Or talk about me at y'all.
Yeah, or talk about
me. Y'all heard it, they're trying to get rid of me already.
Okay.
So with that, any more from the board? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to other business. Seeing no other business?
The only thing I'll put in is I do need one of you lovely people to come to the board meeting on February 12th and give the planning commission report.
And that reminds me of one other thing.
And I did send out the sign-up thing, and no one has signed up for February, so if somebody could do it.
I can do it.
You'll do it, Sharon? Yeah. Sharon's the big winner, thank you.
Okay. And we also need to appoint an alternate for CRPC.
Well, you can think about that, and I can be the alternate for right now until we come up with someone. I'm fine with that.
Great. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Great, so you're now the alternate.
I'm not long-term, we'll find somebody.
Oh, are we going back to 5 o'clock for next week?
No, we changed the meetings to 4:30 for
Okay,
this year.
I'm sorry, I didn't look
I
at my
apologize,
email,
I didn't
and
realize
I had
that
no
you couldn't.
audio last week when it was cutting out all the time when I was online at the meeting.
Okay.
I always forget to look at my email.
So.
I should have reminded you, I'm sorry.
To adjournment, unless you want to make any of the, since you're actually here, if you want to actually do your development update. No. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.